Hey y'all, welcome to my studio. I'm Michelle Johnson of Half Color Will Travel, and today we're going to be talking about my favorite discovery of 2021, and that is the Rotring Isograph drawing pen. This is a technical drawing pen. It's not a fiber tipped drawing pen, and it was something that I discovered from an artist that I was looking at her blog, and now that I'm on camera I realized I need to go back and look for that. So in the description down below it will be to the website where I read the blog post that she wrote about this will be the last drawing pen you ever buy, and I was looking for the last drawing pen I would ever buy because while I have tons and tons of drawing pens, those were all in the pursuit of my drawing pen, like the drawing pen that would help me express my lines and express my ideas. And I went through Staedtler, Microns, Copics, Unipens, Faber-Castells. Basically, I think that's really all of the major drawing pen makers, and I still couldn't find that pen that was really my pen. The pen that made me feel confident, the pen that felt easy for me to hold in my hand. Many of those pens I just mentioned, I had to either tape up with painter's tape so I could have a grip on them and they wouldn't fly out of my hand, or I had to slide on a pencil grip that I had to jerry rig because none of them were actually designed to hold pencil grips, so that my hands wouldn't ache by the time I was finished drawing, because I had to hold them so tightly in order not to just feel like I was in control of the nib. That was usually because the barrel of the pen was really narrow, and my hand doesn't like a really narrow barrel. Say that 5 times fast. And that's not to say that those pens are not fabulous drawing pens. All of them were. They have lasted me a long time. I still have my original set of Microns, and I think that's probably now going on 7 or 8 years. They're very good pens. They're just not my pen. And so I looked at that article that she wrote, and I'm like, I have to see what these are. And it was the Isograph, Rotring Isograph drawing pen. It's a technical pen. Came in a set of 3, and I'd love to share with you about them today. So the Rotring Isograph drawing pen is a technical drawing pen, and what makes it very different from other kinds of drawing pens that are fiber tip is that this tip that you see here, and it's super tiny. I'm gonna see if I can get zoomed in here, if I can do this. It is a very teeny tiny metal nib, and that metal nib is basically just a very small tube in which ink comes down. You'll see I've drawn some lines here. I am drawing on just regular old copy paper, so this 0.2 actually is coming out to my eyes as looking close to what all the fiber tip, the famous makers, Staedtler, Microns, really popular, Unipen, Faber-Castell. This is pretty much coming out, I wonder if I'm running out of ink today, coming out as a 0.2. But when I draw with this on mixed media paper, when I draw with this on art paper that's meant for drawing, or on watercolor paper, my lines are different than what you see here. This paper soaks up ink like crazy. So I will give you an opportunity to see that in just a moment. What makes these pens super cool is that you're never going to need to replace them. Why I also think they're super cool for someone like myself, I have very dry skin as a general rule, thanks to my plethora of autoimmune issues. So I'm always having my pens like fly out of my hand, like literally they just go whoop, and there goes my piece of art sometimes, because the pen flies willy-nilly onto my page, or it just straight up flies off the page and out into the ether, and I have to go collect it. I like these pens because it's got this it's not textured, so it's not like an old school pencil barrel thing that used to slide on there, but it's got some grip to it. It's thicker than the average drawing pen, which is really great for my knuckles, so I'm not like white knuckling it as I draw. But it's got these ridges, and I find that my fingers fit in there nice and easy, and so rather than clenching my pen as I draw so that it doesn't slip out of my hand, which is what I definitely have to do with just a regular fiber tip drawing pen. I'm just putting my fingers into these grooves, and I'm holding it, but it's with the lightest pressure that I've ever been able to draw with. This is the 0.5, much thicker, you'll see. I find this to be closer to, I have to do a comparison, and I will do that, and I'll have a slide after I finish this particular part of the video. I find it closer to the 0.8 or an 0.8. I can't remember all the numbers, how they do that on different pens. And again, this is really soaking in, but I am barely holding this pen. You can even tell, like when I have to regular draw my pen, watch my fingertips change color. So here's relaxed, and you notice my skin color changes. I don't have to do that to get this pen to work. What I do have to do to get this pen to work is to hold it at closer to a 45-degree angle to my paper. So whereas you might be able to draw with a fiber tip pen on the side, notice no ink is coming out. My nib is touching to the paper, but because this is a gravity-based system where it has to have that angle for the ink to flow from the reservoir down through inside where we have the needle going in to get the ink, you have to have it up higher. I find that the lines that I make with this pen feel more like my own, where it's not necessarily that I have control in the sense, because you don't always want to have absolute control over your lines. Notice I can't even stop drawing. This just feels so good. I have control in the sense of, because this is a metal nib, I'm feeling like the haptic feedback, if you will, of my experience drawing. And because of that, my mind is more in tune, and it's almost becoming a much more mindful experience drawing with this pen. So when I draw with the Rotring Isograph, that's all my mind is doing, is I'm not focusing on how to hold the pen. I'm not focusing on whether my lines are going to be perfect. And notice my lines can be very, very straight, because I just need to make sure that pen stays at the angle, and then I'm able to do what it is you're supposed to do when you draw, is not to draw with your wrist, but to draw with the arm, especially when you're making a straight line. And I can do that because once I have that pen in the proper angle, that tip's gonna do its magic by being in contact with the paper, having that gravitational pull of the ink down, and it just lays that ink down 100%. This nib is not rounded or textured. It's just a metal tube that's coming into contact with this paper. Now, one of the things that's a little more, I don't want to say challenging, just a little nerve-wracking, and when I did it for the first time, I was like this. I was like, oh my God, I just bought these pens. And yes, they are more expensive. These pens, I think this set was around $60 a year ago. Came with this ink. It came with an 03, an 02, and an 05. This drawing template, which I don't really have need for, but is the case protector and the case cover. It also came with what now is my favorite pencil, which is an 05 Tiki pencil, which I'm really, really loving. Again, I think they understand people. They understand folks that draw or write for a long period of time. They created a grip that makes it so, ooh, this one, oh, wow. Can you hear that? On this paper, that squeaks. I don't have to work to grip this pencil for it to stay in my hand. And that is so important to me, because as I'm aging, because I'm like 49, y'all, I want to make sure that these body parts stay working. I mean, I don't want to say I live in fear of getting arthritis in my hands, but it has creeped into my mind as I've gotten older. And the set also came with this. It's an adapter for a Rotring compass, so you can use these in creating really perfect circles. I don't have a Rotring compass, but you can bet your bottom dollar I'm now looking into it, because that sounds fun to me. It also came with a bunch of lead for my pencil, and it came with this eraser, which you'll notice I have not even bothered to open because I have so many erasers. So I'm just keeping this for a rainy day. It all came in this lovely, this is a real, watch the cat hair. This is a really good plastic case. It's got rubber feet on it. So when I have this on my desk, I feel really confident that I'm not going to knock it over. It's not, because I do think that these pens, unlike the fiber tip pens, this is a hard plastic. I wouldn't want to step on this. I wouldn't want to drop it because it would be more likely to break than, say, if I dropped my Staedtlers on the ground or stepped on one of those. So one of the things, though, I think I was trying to say at the beginning, that was a little nerve-wracking was filling the ink reservoir when I first got this set. Because, you know, this was $60. I'd never spent $60 on drawing pens. So I was a little bit nervous. I took my pen cap off, and I did Google this, so I did look, and I learned how to do it. But one of the things that happened to me was that it wouldn't write right away. And I so freaked out. My husband says he wishes he had me on film because I just went berserk. So I wanted to show you guys these pens and watch me do. I've not ever put ink into my 03 or my 0.3. I just haven't had the need. I filled the 2 first, and then I filled the 5. And I want to say for like almost a year, this has really been all I needed and all I wanted. So I was keeping this one off to the side because they are technical pens and you do fill the reservoir with ink. I had read that the ink can dry in a pen that's not being used. And so I wasn't really sure what my drawing habits were going to be with these new pens. So I didn't want to fill all 3 just in case the 2 and the 3 were super similar. So I'm also finding out today with you what this is going to look like as far as like line thickness. So what you do is you just twist off the drawing mechanism or the top part of the pen, and you take your time with it. Okay, so these are threads of hard plastic. And if you've ever had toys growing up, as I know we all do, if you are rough with plastic that's hard and it twists, you're going to break it. You're going to bust these threads, and then it's not going to work anymore. So that's one of the things that I read about these pens is just make sure you don't over tighten. You can under tighten, and then maybe there's too much air getting in, but so far so good. I don't really super tighten these caps, and I haven't had any problems. After you've done that, and you notice this is an empty reservoir, and I will go through and open these for you guys. This is not twisted. This is it's fitted, so it's not super duper. It's fitted to be tight. I know there's a word for that, but right now it's escaping me since I'm on camera. And like I said, it came with this 1 bottle of ink. I've been drawing with these pretty heavily for like at least 6 months. I want to say, I have to go back and look at my receipts to remember when I got these. And I've only put ink in these once. I keep waiting for that day where I shake the ink down and nothing comes down, but so far that hasn't happened, which leads me to believe that these little bottles of Rotring ink, which it says it's 23 milliliters, go a long way. Because I was wondering, right, how much does ink cost? And do I need to get more so that I don't run out? Because this is not something that you buy at your local Walmart or art store. Well, at least around here, all I have is Hobby Lobby. You won't be able to find this. And I have to tell you, I'm loving this Rotring ink. We'll talk about that in a second. So rather than pouring, which would be messy, I'm going to stick this on top, and we're just going to let that ink fill, which is super, super satisfying. This is a little more challenging on film because I can't see it perfectly. In fact, I'm going to rotate my hands so that I can, because this is for your information and your education, but I also want to see it myself. And I'm not going to fill it all the way because I do not want that overfilling experience. And I now know from having filled 2 pens, and I'm going to put this on right away. This ink, y'all, this is some heavy duty, so water impermeable and black. I just love the color of this ink, which means if you get it on something, it's there to stay. And then I'm gonna put this nib back on, and I'm gonna make sure, I'm gonna look down and I'm gonna press that in and make sure that that ink is really there. Now I think this is gonna do what I was hoping it would do, which is be a little bit stressful, meaning that it's not gonna write right away. And then I'm rotating the barrel, and I'm being so rather than rotating and twisting with one hand, either the right or left, I'm gonna do it together. So they're staying together, so that I'm not, when you twist with one hand, it tends that this one stays still, and your hand's never going to actually stay parallel to this, to the opposing hand. There will be a slight tweak. So, but when you work together in unison, at least that's my experience, you can really manage both hands to be at the same parallel line. And you want these to be straight. You do not want to have this action while you're twisting. Move these pens out of the way. So watch, this is gonna write right away, and this is going to be for naught. But when I first filled the 2, and then eventually the 5, it wouldn't write right away. And when I did the first one, I freaked out. I'm like, oh no, it doesn't work. This was a mistake. Yeah. So let me see, are you in the frame? Yes, you will. You will be in frame. So we're gonna see if we can write. See, nothing's coming down. So you just wanna do a little bit of a shake, and you can hear things going on in there. Get that ink to beautiful. Oh, and y'all, I love it. The 3, it's still very fine, but that's nice. It's a nice in-between step. Notice here I am. I'm gonna show you how I undo, because this is where I read online that people were constantly busting this part. Because if you don't have a cap, this pen is completely useless. The ink will dry, and you will have to either clean it, or it will not be cleanable, because like with the 2 or the 1, and I'm very curious about getting a 1, that nib is super fragile. So you wanna make sure that you twist together and then let it come off. And the caps, I don't find that they go on, but I'm not also finding that to be a problem. So I set that off to the side. I'm sure if I forced it, I might be able to figure out how to get it up there. I don't wanna force it. That's how much I love these pens. So this is the, I should probably write that down. This is the 0.3. Woo, that was a little bit of an ink blob. And then this is the 0.2. Ooh, nice difference. Sorry, I'm experiencing this with you today with my 3, and I'm holding this and I'm being very careful. I'm not twisting from down here. I am twisting from, this is the most stable part of the Rotring Isograph pen, is this area right here. This is where everything comes together. This is where there's no extra twisting. It's just nice and strong. So you want to twist it not from here, but from here, so that you have a nice firm grip, but you're not bending the pen. So this is the 5, which you can see is much, much thicker. And we'll put that puppy back on. Oh, I'm so excited, y'all, because I am very, very curious to get myself, ooh, there's the 3. Oh, you're definitely going to be coming into rotation with the 2. I am definitely going to be getting myself, oops, I should do it a little more slowly. With Rotring's Isograph pens, you do write more slowly, and these pens are perfect for folks that are working with their grip and loosening their grip. You cannot, I repeat, you cannot, let's just spell that out. Can you guys see that? Yes, you can. You cannot, there's some cat hair for you, let you know that you're in my Have Color Will Travel studio. Press hard with the Isograph. If you press hard with Isograph pens, you will bust the nib. End of story. It'll bend. So what these pens are really fabulous for, and why I think my lines, my lines personally, why I love them so much, is because they take out that need to really push down into your work for you to experience getting a line. I thought you might be interested in seeing some of the drawings that I've been doing lately with the Isograph pen. I've got a stack over here. This is just some noodling that I was doing. Let me move the pens over. This is on multimedia paper, and notice how the lines of this paper, on this paper, let me zoom in for you. Where's my button there? How the lines on this one are less, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't fray, they don't spread as much, because this is mixed media paper. It's a Canson mixed media sketchbook. So this would be these thick lines right here, what you're looking at right there. That's the 05, and that's the, I shouldn't say 05, that's the 0.5, and that's the 0.2. And this was just some noodling that I was doing when I first got the pens to kind of give them a try to see what was going on with them. To show that these were waterproof. Let me put this way. This, can you see that? I just did some line, this is some cheap watercolor paper. I did just 2 lines. And then I doused this baby with watercolor. At least actually, I'd like it better this way. I'm still gonna add some more lines to this, but notice, let me move this forward. That line stayed completely still. This was with the 0.2. This didn't go anywhere with a ton of moisture, and I find that to be really, really impressive. That it still looked equally as black as it did before. You can get really fine lines with the 2. This is on, actually I think this is on Arsh's watercolor paper, so this is 100% cotton. This is just a Canson student grade paper. So again, these lines are super crisp. This was the 2. You can zoom that in for you again. See how, I just think it's great. Look how tight you can get that nib in there. And there's a little, that was an extra ink splotch right there. But as a general rule, there isn't that splotchiness at the end of picking up your pen that I find, and maybe that's just the fault of my hand, but that I would find when I drew with fiber tip pens. Microscopic dots. You can just, these are some of these, like the larger dots that you see here were the 5, everything else was the 2. Let me zoom in on that again. I hope it's not making you sick to go zooming in. Look at how teeny. And that's just from tapping the pen to the paper. Let's see, one more. This is a rather toothy paper that I'm slowly doing a triptych that unfortunately my cat stepped in paint and then stepped on the paper, so this was going to be all black and white, and now I've got to revise and resubmit and figure out what am I going to do with that little blue-orange splash. But this is a pretty toothy, let me get you zoomed in again, watercolor paper. And this is with the 02. So the line is thicker. This is a very inexpensive, not very toothy watercolor paper. This one's really toothy. And you notice the line is a little bit fatter when you draw on a toothier paper. But I'm still finding this to be a really fine, let me go and zoom out, a fine line that I'm making. I would say this is probably comparable to when I'm drawing with an 02 in any of the drawing pens, the fiber tip drawing pens, and maybe even an 01 in some of them. You will find that regardless of what the point is that they say, each pen's version of 0.2, 0.3, 0.5, 0.1, 0.005, all of them are different, which makes you wonder, what system of measurement are we using, y'all? Yeah, so moving right along. When I researched these pens, so many people, let me get these out of the way. So many people were saying online, like, you know, if you can draw with these pens. These pens are designed for architects and you can draw with them, but you need to be cautious on toothy paper because the nibs will clog or it's not going to work for you, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying they're not right. I'm saying that perhaps their temperament as an artist is a little different than mine. I'm super patient on things if I want them to work, and I want these pens to work on toothy paper, and so I take my time with it. And as well, when I'm doing work like this with pens like this that are not just going to, you know, move over and fill in the spaces as easily as you would a fiber tip, you're gonna get a little bit of a buildup. And I think, because I was just drawing with this like about an hour ago on some watercolor paper. And what you do is you very carefully, and you want to do it straight, you pull that fiber off and you're ready to go. I don't find these to be a problem to draw with on toothy paper. This has more tooth than regular drawing paper. This definitely had more tooth. This is closer, this mixed media pad is much closer to drawing paper, but it still has more tooth than average drawing paper. I don't find that to be a problem, but I'm a pretty determined illustrator. When I want to draw, and I want to draw on a particular type of paper, I am going to do it, by golly, and figure out how I can make it work. I also draw really slowly when I'm drawing with, golly, cat burr everywhere. Sorry. My cats can sometimes drive me absolutely crazy. I draw really slowly when I'm working with toothy paper like this. Here's another example. This is an inexpensive watercolor card that I wanted to play with, and I'm gonna zoom you in so you can see, super textured. And again, this was with the 02, not the 02 Michelle, the 0.2 in the Rotring Isograph, and you can see it's got a lot of tooth, and I just took my time and I enjoyed the experience. Every once in a while I had to basically, what you might want to call, defuzz the nib to get that ink out, and I was perfectly happy with that. Well, I hope after all of that you have a pretty good idea of what the Rotring Isograph drawing pen, technical drawing pen, is all about. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them or point you in a direction where I think you might find the answer. I don't know everything there is to know about these pens, but I'm excited to find those things out. I do want to say I am definitely going to be getting myself a 0.1, which is, I believe, the smallest nib that they make in the Isograph. And I'm also looking into getting something that's just slightly bigger than I'm looking for the 0.5, slightly bigger than the 0.5, both for filling in large spaces with black, because at this time I wouldn't use any of these nib sizes to fill in large spaces with black. I think what I would do in that case, if I was creating that kind of work, I would probably dip my paintbrush into some India ink and do that work a little faster. But I would like to see about some really thick lines, and I do know they make these in a 1, which means a 1.0, which is a pretty thick nib in the realm of drawing pens. So that's going to be my next pursuit. If what I find turns out to be amazing, I may make another video, like an epilogue to my drawing pens, my drawing pen discovery. But until that time, have fun with your coloring, have fun with your art, have fun with your drawing, and I hope this has been really helpful. Bye, y'all.